Yeah, so I had this I keep hearing this thing on the news a lot, and, so I wanted to see what you guys thought of it. Are you familiar with, the Dunning-Kruger effect? Have you heard of this thing?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
an expert. I know all about it.
Yeah, clearly you have heard about it. Um, well, so we were having this conversation the other day. I can't remember what the context was, but we were talking about how, when you are at the beginning stages of learning something, right? Like you decide that you want to pick something up, especially when you're not a kid anymore, like when you're in your 40s, the things that you pick up, you're like really intentional about them, right? So you pick these things up and you commit to them, and then you have this person, and so to make it less vague, we use a jujitsu analogy because I know how much my brother loves when I make everything about jujitsu.
Yeah.
Shout out Bob Highsmith. Uh, but I distinctly remember like walking into my first couple of jujitsu classes and and then rolling with people who were higher belts
Mhm.
and feeling like it was this almost like mythological skill that they'd picked up. Like
Yeah.
what is this? Like how is this happening to me from this person, right? Like, and so because you're in such awe because it takes you like like by surprise so hard. Um I think that there's a psychological tendency to sort of assign that level of skill to a broader in a broader sense than just, "Oh, they're probably just good at being a black belt," right? They're
Mm.
probably just good at jujitsu, right? Like, you assume that they're good at other things. If you're this high level of a success at this, you must be a high level at everything, right? And so, I think in this case, what happens sometimes is that when those people sort of sit in that spotlight for enough time, there's a and maybe it's understandable, but there's a tendency to go, "Oh, yeah, I am a subject matter expert on
Mhm.
everything," right? Like, "Yes, thank you. I belong up here on this high chair above you."
Yeah.
Whatever, drunk with power or whatever. I mean, such a
Mhm.
stupid thing, right? But it does happen. It's like a real
It
thing.
does.
Mhm.
Um, and so the Dunning-Kruger effect kind of describes this situation where someone has such a lack of self-awareness that they believe that they're better at something than they actually are, which
Mm.
typically creates conflict with people around them, especially if you're blessed, in your life with someone like me who's willing to go, horse shit, right? Like, uh, um, but what do you think about that? Like, is that relatable to you? Has that scenario come across your mind? Have you ever had that moment where you were like, "Oh, this person who I had up on this pedestal, uh, I just found something out, and now they're like, why am I listening to you about
Yeah.
anything?" You know?
Yeah. I think it's just you have these things in life where you find these people to aspire to be like because they're ahead of you in the path, right? Like in jujitsu or whatever. It's celebrity worship, right? Our society is full of that where it's like the whole shut
Yeah.
up and sing kind of a thing. Or shut up and act. Like, yes, you're good at an actor. Yes, you're good at reading somebody else's lines. I don't care what your political opinions are or your social
Mhm.
opinions or anything else. Like just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean that your opinion on other things is more valuable. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think and to be fair, I'm pretty sure that, that where I'm hearing this effect talked about more and more is in, anytime I flip the news on or something and there's some sort of political thing happening. Um, because it seems like lately what we've got is less like actual political leaders and more
Mhm.
people who, you know, can smile big and say the right words that are written on the paper and then, make the people happy, right? It's not really like so what ends up happening is then you press that person on their position. you ask for clarity or for context or for them to provide more information, then all of a sudden they're like, "Duh,"
Yeah.
or they start attacking you or something,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
it's not a at that point you sort of lose even having a conversation with someone. Um,
Right.
but I, I'm curious because I think that there's probably some recalibration due. Um, but on a personal level, have you ever found yourself like having to recalibrate yourself? Like gotten to a point where you were so good at something that you thought, okay, yeah, I'm an expert at this.
Mm.
Like what's the mindset, the path to that sort of mindset?
Yeah.
I well, if we knew the answer to that one, I don't know that we would be talking about Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's
you would
tough.
think
It's like,
that according to the effect, you should be able to speak authoritatively, whether you
right.
really you're talking
Listen,
about.
I know exactly what I'm talking about. So everybody pay attention.
Yeah.
So the problem
I
then, I think you're right though. The problem then becomes that it's hard to relate to because we, through the conversations that we've had in this podcast, we've revealed that we are people who value honest self-evaluation and who
Mm.
are value just sort of laying it all out and seeing what still makes
yeah.
um
It recalls a story from when I was an intern, and I had a bit of a unique experience where I worked in the NFL for 3 years when I was starting my career. And if you want a fertile ground for observing the Dunning-Kruger effect in maximum, find yourself some professional athletes and just watch. Um,
yeah.
but there was this guy that was brought to the team. He was a rookie, um, an amazing dude, super, super nice guy. His name is Vernon Davis. This is a public story. You can go look it up. He was, by every measurable, the best athlete on that whole team.
Mm.
He ran the fastest. He was the tallest. He was, 260 at, 7% body fat. And, he could bench 225 like 25 times in a row. He had a 500 plus squat. I mean, in the 0.01% of all humans when it comes to athleticism. But he wasn't performing his duties. He thought he knew better than the coach. He had a massive ego when he came into the league. And there was so much hope for him because you could see the potential.
Mm.
And he would actively in practice, like, stop running the practice routes as hard as he wanted to because he didn't think that there was going to be a benefit. He knew better. On Sundays, when he would go play the game, he was still running by people. He was blowing over guys that were 250 pounds as if they weren't there. So he was like, I don't need to, this is a waste of my time. I know better.
Mm.
And the head coach was this linebacker from the 80s by the name of Mike Singletary. And he was like the epitome of the grind era of football. His whole deal was when you're hurting, you keep going. If I have to cut my hand off to play this game, I'm happily going to be the one-handed
Yeah.
man from now on, right?
Mhm.
So after practice, he takes Vernon. There's all the media are gone. All the rest of the team is gone. There's no other coaches there, except the PR staff had their building where I worked right next to the practice field. And he made an athlete who made $12 million a year run wind sprints until he puked.
Hmm.
And this is in an era where if you look at a professional athlete the wrong way, you get a call from that athlete's agent, and he says he's not showing up to practice, and now it's a national news story, and now the team is no longer the focus, and it's just all this, outsized risk. He made the guy run wind sprints until he puked. And he did it to another guy at a separate occasion in private, and the whole notion was you don't know as much as you think you do.
Mhm.
And Vernon actively talks about how that changed his whole career, that made him the all-star that he was, that helped him earn more money over time. And it was just somebody who could find a way to kind of slap him in the face and wake him up and say, like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about and you think you do. Just trust
Mm.
me and I'll get you there. And like the take home that I brought from that is like, it doesn't matter how talented you are. You have to
Mhm.
have somebody who's been there before. Like, going back to the episode that we were talking about with wisdom, you have to have somebody that's been there before that you trust.
Yeah.
And if they've gone through that life cycle and can give you that kind of guidance, I think that's the best
Mm.
antidote.
Yeah. When you first start, right, you probably don't begrudge that coach for making you do wind sprints till you puke, right? Because you're
Yeah.
thinking, right? You're thinking, well, yeah, this is what it takes to be a champ, right? Like I have to do this.
Mhm.
Right.
If I want to outperform, I have to do this. And then you get to the point where you're at the top of your game, and you're like, okay, yeah, like
I've climbed the mountain.
I think so not to bring it back to jujitsu hashtag Bob Highsmith, uh, but it's interesting, right? And maybe martial arts in general, um, any sort of practice that you do that has stages of advancement, right?
Mm.
So at some point, it's interesting to watch even on the mats, when a white belt starts to figure something out, right? Maybe now they're on their 7th or 8th month, right? And they figured out that, oh, if I actually focus on the legs, I might be able to start figuring out how to get around them, or whatever, like you're
Hmm.
not learning anything of like super consequence, but it's more than you're just suffering for, an hour and a half or whatever. Um, and so you watch them start to give advice to other white belts, right? Who are the exact same, like you guys are literally months apart in the journey, right? It's not
Yeah.
Right.
whatever. Even when you get to the point of blue belt, and you can't begrudge people, right? Because they don't know what they don't know. When you're a
Mhm.
blue belt and all of a sudden you've got this skill that works that you didn't have a year ago or 2 years
Right.
ago, right? And now it's like, oh, this is kind of,
Mhm.
something. There's something here.
Yeah.
Um, then you might feel a little more qualified to give advice, but still, what do we know having passed that point, right? Is that at blue belt, you still really don't know anything. You
Yes.
figured out how to suffer with a smile on your face,
Yes.
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
And blue belt is where you really start going, okay, now I'm not just drowning the entire time. I'm going to start working up this or that. You know,
There's like
they
pattern
then
recognition.
of course. And then you get to purple and you're like, well, okay, now it's time for you to start investing in that white belt, right? That first
Yeah.
stage white belt or that 6-month white belt or whatever.
Right.
It's your turn to start investing, but you're still also looking to the people who are brown and black belts, above you. And then you get to this point where you're like at the cusp or you've gotten your black belt and it's like, oh, okay, well now you realize that there's just higher levels of black belt now, right?
Mhm.
It's not like no matter what, it's an insurmountable hill.
Yeah.
But what we tend to do is we do comparative analysis, right? It's not a brand new black belt versus a 17-year black belt, right? Because you're both black belts. It's
Right.
a brand new black belt versus a 6-month white belt,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
That's the measurement that we tend to use. Right? So once you reframe it that way though, now you're the subject matter expert, right?
Yeah.
And they're the sponge. Uh, Jordan, you've gotten your black belt. What mentally, what was that switch like for you? Like, did it as soon as it happened, or in the aftermath, the couple months after? How did that affect your mindset? In any way that might have been different from what you'd experienced in the journey up.
Yeah. Um, I remember though, like succinctly, like receiving it and kind of like going out and being like, well, now what? Like I've won jujitsu. Like I've achieved what a, less than 1/10% ever achieved in this sport. Like, and I've achieved it from a school as a very high level school. The person who gave me my black belt's a very high level black belt, like 5th degree, 6th degree, world renowned 180 cc. Like a black belt means something, and you earning it like that. You're like,
Crazy.
okay, well, I've earned it from somebody who actually I respect the hell out of for giving it to me, kind of a thing. And so you're like, okay, well, now what? Like, but it's so interesting. Like the belts. So I had an interesting conversation this morning in class. Our top black belt, his name's Dustin. He travels. He wins like Atlanta Open. He went to Nagasaki, Japan, and won the Nagasaki Open. He is a wrecking ball of a jiu-jitsu practitioner. And we were kind of talking about belts today because our promotion's coming up in like 20 days. And he's like, belts don't mean shit. He's like, if
Huh.
you hang out here long enough, you'll get the next belt. He's like, there's no competency. There's no like, you must do these certain moves and we'll give you the next belt. He's just like, jiu-jitsu rewards people who are stubborn. He's like, so not skill acquisition, just stubbornness. And so it's so interesting. Like, and so we had 6 black belts this morning on the mat, and they're all Kenny's black belts, and they're all guys who are savages in their own right. And you look at them, and it's just like, it's just so interesting because it's never ending. It's never ending. And the more you realize that the journey is never ending and people do stuff to you you've never seen before, even as a black belt, Dustin does stuff to me all the time that I'm like, what was that? Where'd that come from? Like, and it's just that journey is always an upward trajectory. And you get to decide how deep you want the water to be, right, at a certain level. Because you could get your black belt and be like, all right, well, I'm not rolling with anybody anymore because I've achieved this. And right, you sit on the side of the mat and you pick and choose who you want to roll with, and you sandbag, and you grab the littlest person, or you grab the people who won't give you a fight, and because you've achieved it, right? Nobody's going to guess or second guess your choices, right? But I don't know. I got to that certain level because I want the fight, and so I think I don't know. The journey is so different because you start out like always looking up, right? As a white belt, even a blue belt, you're like, wow, that brown belt's so much better than me. I'll never be that good. Or the purple belts just will destroy you, just run through you over and over again. And you're like, that metric is hard to measure between where you are and where they are, and not really realizing that time is such a huge part of it, and just
Mm-hmm.
that experience.
So, uh, but what about outside of jujitsu?
Okay.
So when you got that, did it change your mindset in any other areas of your life?
Just it kind of fell in line with other things that I've done in life, like physically, like I don't know, playing varsity sports in high school was kind of similar to that. Like you start like in little league baseball, right? There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids who play baseball in the local area, right? And then by the time you get to your senior year of high school, there's 17 guys, right, who've kind of made it to that varsity level. Or racing mountain bikes, right? I raced mountain bikes professionally for 6 years of the 11 years that I competed, and it get to a very small select group. And you look up to the guys who are ahead of you, guys who are Olympic level guys, and guys who've been race World Cups and stuff like that. But as you start to get to know them more and more, you're like, they're just a normal dude. Like, and the conversation doesn't revolve around bikes; it revolves around family and it revolves around whatever.
Right.
And jiu-jitsu is the same way, right? When you get there, all the black belts are kind of watching everybody drill and do their moves. Like we're talking about work and life and family. We're not talking about jujitsu, right? And it's kind of funny to see them, everybody else working hard and doing their stuff, and we're like, let's talk about how's your work going? Like, how's your kid doing, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of realize more and more, you're like, people achieve a really high level, and sometimes even like when you have like a boss or a VP, and you talk to them, and you're like, you don't understand what we do. Like, yes,
Yeah.
you're the
How
VP of this thing, and we do this thing too, and you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That is
I
an
have that at
interesting
work
thing
too.
having come from corporate. I was gonna say, I wanna toss it over to Kris for a second,
Yeah,
because I know, Kris is in those high level
yeah.
corporate environments, and I'm sure he's never had to deal with any sort of bloated or inflated egos,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, never,
in the
never.
biz.
It's funny, as I'm hearing you talk about that, like I'm thinking about a couple of folks that I know that are more junior and they're just starting out in their career.
Mhm,
And I think one of the big things that I've noticed as it comes to like examining the Dunning-Kruger effect through the career lens
mhm,
is this idea that like when you start your career, you're very much tied to your own ambition, whether that's I want to make more money or I want to have, financial security or whatever your ambition is, but you're so tied to that. And in order to achieve that ambition, I think a lot of people fall into this trap of, I have to be an expert at this
Mhm.
task or this set of tasks, right? And I'm watching folks at my company who are so laser focused on, if I do the best report and deliver that,
Mhm.
or if I have the best meeting and I do that over and over and over and over and over again, I'm going to be great. And then you hear them talking to other teams and group projects, and they're like, they all of a sudden have this like leadership tone. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And
Mhm.
here we go. And it's funny because I think that's exactly what the Dunning-Kruger effect does. It's like, oh, they get this like modicum of progress. And there's this like misunderstanding of how that progress was achieved. And
Mhm.
they think that that progress was achieved because they did a lot of work, when in reality, the progress was achieved because they showed up to work. Like,
Mhm.
just being there and giving it the attempt is what got you the progress. And there's this like false sense of attribution. Oh yeah, well, I'm good at my job. That's why
Yeah.
I'm. It's like, that may be true, but that's not the thing that's giving you the progress towards your ambition. It is
Yeah.
the consistency.
I
Well, I would
wonder.
ask Chris, like, so, okay, a question for you guys then. So, when you see people who are high achievers, right? And then they join a
Hmm.
sport like jujitsu or they start a job like yours, and these guys who've achieved a really high level, say, like in college sports or in some professional sport somewhere, and then they show up
Hmm.
and they're like, well, if I just focus that laser beam that made me successful there on this, I'll be successful too. And it's so interesting, especially in jujitsu, Rick. We have guys who are collegiate soccer players, right? At like Point Loma. And this guy shows
Hmm.
up and he's a physical specimen, and he's mid 20s, back early 30s, college athlete, and he just struggles at certain things. It's like you can't just over athletic this thing. Like you have to
Yeah.
be a thinker. You have to be like
Hmm.
processing why it's not working, not just be more athletic. And I think it's the
Yeah.
same idea like in a lot of jobs where it's like these guys are achieving a really high level in college sport. You put them in a sales job and they're like, why am I not selling? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. It's like, well,
Hmm.
it's not the same. It's not the same kind of process.
Well, certainly a cautionary tale about,
Mhm.
not letting, the Dunning-Kruger drive the ship, right? Because
Mhm.
there's nothing worse than finding out that you were wrong, after you're like
Right.
right, like, "Oh, I'm super cool." I think that's why jujitsu is such a calibrating,
Yes.
sort of, activity or thing to do, is
Mhm.
because you literally can't go in there. It doesn't matter how cool you are, right? You go in there and you're just a wet lump of clay,
Yeah.
and everybody's just kind of
I,
Well,
thrashing.
I
Randy,
think
you guys
like,
have talked about this actually in previously, like, and I had the same experience. Like, dude, up until really like my black belt, I would walk into class and be like, I didn't get the shit kicked out of me today. Like, I know it. I know I'm going to
huh,
show up today and I'm going to get my ass kicked. And it was literally like up into my black belt. Cause I think you get your
Yeah,
butt
I
kicked for
still do
so
it.
bad for so long
yeah,
that you
I
just assume.
every
Yeah.
single role doesn't matter
Yes.
who the
Yeah,
person is.
yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
But like,
Me
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest observation though, and maybe the theme that I'm trying to steer towards is this idea that like, when your perspective is self-contained in whatever activity that you're doing, that's when the risk for Dunning-Kruger is the highest. Because what you guys are describing is a sense of humility when you arrive somewhere that
Mhm.
is drawn from the perspective your experience has given you. And that perspective in jujitsu is, anybody can show up on any day and beat the shit out of me. It doesn't matter how good
Yes.
I am. And I need to be ready for that. And so that perspective is critical for success in jujitsu because it allows you to plan and react and understand what happens if you start getting your ass kicked. And you draw joy from the times when it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
In professional settings, it's the same way. It's the exact same thing. Dunning-Kruger robs you of your perspective. If you're sitting there thinking every day, and for me, as a desk jockey, if you're riding a desk every day and you're like, I can't wait to go into this meeting. I got everything locked in. I know all the people here. They're gonna love my idea. That's where Dunning-Kruger risk is the highest. Whereas if you walk into a meeting and you go, I can't wait to hear what other people think about this. Like,
Mm.
there's something out there. There's a piece of the puzzle that I'm missing. And if I don't
Yeah.
get it, then I won't have that understanding. And so that's where you have to be super sensitive about how you balance the scales. It's like, when you enter into an environment, what perspective is driving your action?
Mhm.
Like, I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is. And because I think that I always tend to think of it, I fall to the side of humility because I hate the feeling of being overconfident and then being proven wrong
Yes.
in real time.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, I
That
hate that
sucks.
feeling. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Right.
I would much rather think I suck at this and then prove myself wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
100%. I grew up watching the original Star Trek. That was Scotty 101, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is
Well, and it's also, I think too, like it's having the ability to realize that you don't know everything. I think it's also maybe a problem in our society is that people can't say they don't know, right? People don't like the fact when
Yeah.
somebody says they don't know. Like, and
Yes.
I I don't know, man. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay with being like,
Yeah.
hey, you know what? I don't know. Let's maybe come back to
Yes.
this and talk, or
But
ask me for input.
that's an easy trap to fall into though,
Yeah.
because like for me, if in this instant gratification culture, if I come to you and I go, "Hey, do you have the answer to this question?" And you go, "No," I go, "Oh, okay, fine. Does anybody have the answer to this question?"
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit and like
That's
help
such a
flesh it
hard
out with you,
skill though.
right?
Like that's
Yeah.
super rare. The like
Yeah,
the level of comfort with going, I don't care that I don't know. I just want the answer is
yeah,
such a difficult skill because
Mhm.
in the Western culture, you're brought up through schooling, through cultural groups, everything in your placement in the hierarchy within a given society is based almost entirely on your ability to succeed. And then you sit there and you go, okay, well, if I'm going to be successful, I have to know everything about this. And then I have to make sure other people know that I know everything about this.
Mm.
And so if you're walking into a room going like, I don't know, I know I'm going to be successful because of, my track record or my confidence or the fact that, I'm willing to be wrong because I know how to deal with suffering. Like whatever the thing is. But if you can show up in a room and feel comfortable not knowing the answer and feel comfortable that everybody else knows that you don't know the answer,
Mhm.
that is super rare. Like I don't know many people beyond this podcast that actually display that in real life.
Mm.
Whether it's sport, whether it's hobby culture, whether it's being the most expert at understanding every Harry Potter book, like stuff like that. Like you run into it everywhere. And
Yeah.
that's how people like that's the trap you fall in when you build your self-worth. Like if you build it
Yeah.
on only what you know and not what you can still learn, then you're
Yeah.
fucked.
Well, because
I
you
think
monetize it,
but
right?
Yeah.
I think one of the dangers of that too, right, is that it gets so granular to the point where it's like, okay, if I'm a person who doesn't really believe that I'm good at anything, right? That makes me feel
Yeah.
bad about myself,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
then I pick some superfluous thing or something probably weird or off the beaten path because nobody else cares to be an expert in that, right?
Mhm.
And then I just go,
Yeah.
I'm the expert at that, you know? Most of the time, no one's even gonna ever call you out because no one can fact check you, no one cares, like
Mhm.
whatever that situation is.
Yeah.
Like you said, um, if you're an expert at Harry Potter, that might have its uses in, certain trivia nights or
Circles.
wherever you find yourself
Yeah.
ending up, right?
Right. Sure.
But just having a general understanding or, all the facts and all the details memorized of those things, and I'm using Harry Potter because you did, but, I think
Yeah, yeah,
about it
yeah.
all the time, like, I grew up in
I think
this
about Harry
TV
Potter all the time too.
I dream about Harry Potter.
Yes.
Well,
Uh,
and the thing
but
is,
I grew up
the
in that
interest oh,
I grew up in that TV generation, you guys did too, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
The first generation that really had and we talked about this too, but TV aimed at the generation of kids that were coming up, like
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
TV shows had toys for them and,
Right, right, right,
and
right.
then certain toys had cartoons built for them later, and like everything was tied into how can we market and really make this, thing a
Mhm.
moneymaker.
Yep.
But because it made everything so memorable and because that was what I spent so much time doing,
Mhm.
like it was a long time into, my 20s that I was still using movie and music quotes for the majority of my dialogue with people. You know, there's a movie quote to relate to everything, right?
Mhm.
My brother and I still talk to each other that way.
Yeah.
So what's interesting though is every once in a while you'll get somebody who they watch a completely different set of movies than you, right? Like they memorize the movies that you've never even seen. And then they'll come and they'll
Right.
go, they'll say something and they'll go, "Name that line." And you're like, I don't know." And they're like, "You've never seen that? You don't know what that is?" And then all of a sudden you're stupid for not having seen the
Yeah.
movie
Yeah.
that they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of like in terms of Dunning-Kruger, uh there's nothing more awkward than seeing that fail in real time,
Mm.
and I think of like it, this is just going to be a jujitsu heavy episode, Bob. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Uh, but I've had times where like, Jimmy will be teaching something, right? And then we go to drill and I'll walk by and like a 4-stripe blue belt will be teaching something, a different variation
Yeah.
of it to the white belt that they're drilling with. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like you're changing things, like you're writing things you don't even know what works and what doesn't work, right? Like, why are you changing things? Um, and I think that the root of that is everybody just wants to feel like they have something that someone else doesn't have.
Mm.
Right? And even
Mm.
doing jujitsu and becoming a black belt at jujitsu, it's like you even mentioned it, right? Like
That's
anybody who's achieved a
interesting.
black belt understands that statistic of only this tiny percentage of people ever end up getting it. And so
Huh.
then you feel like, "Oh, well, I'm in this exclusive club."
Mm.
It's harder to have that mentality where we train at Aries of Roseville, hashtag Aries. It's harder though, because when you go to like a promotions, there's 30 of those sumbitches up there, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Mhm.
entire front wall is covered with black belts. So you're like, okay. When you go to stand up there with them, you're like, okay, this is special in a like a global sense, but in a
Mm.
local sense, uh, I'm at the bottom of a very deadly totem pole,
Mhm.
like I'm just dipping my toe into this
Yeah,
uh,
bro.
this, group of warriors, right? It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. And the thing is though too, like, and the funny part with the whole black belt, sorry, Randy's brother, the whole part of the whole black belt issue is that once you get there and you go, "Oh, those guys were full of shit." Like they're not like you're not as good as you thought you were. Like we all three of us know exactly who we're talking about.
Yeah.
One of our previous coaches thought he was God's gift to jujitsu whenever he'd step on the
Yeah.
mat. And now that I've achieved the level that he was at when he was teaching, he didn't know shit. And he wasn't good at it. It's just I am humbled at my school weekly by guys who won pans or guys that win master worlds. And it's just like guys who win IBJJF, like prestigious things. And I get my shit kicked in by these guys. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. And yes, I'm a black belt. My belt is black. Yes. Okay. I'm at the bottom of this totem pole right now. And I'm constantly reminded of that. And
Crazy.
there's no, there's no,
There's levels.
oh, there's levels, bro. We have a guy. Yeah. I think he won pans one year and got second the next year at black belt. And he is just a wrecking machine, 185-pound wrecking machine. And he just,
Jeez.
dude, we have a group of four of us. And so it was two people in, two people out. And it was
Oh
first to
no.
score. I think I scored once out of like 10 times through. And I got done. And I talked to my buddy's other black belt. I'm like, bro, I'm the bottom of this totem pole here, and I'm okay with it. I'm like, but this is
The
rough. And he's
thing
like,
that
oh yeah, these guys are rough.
the thing that scares the shit out of me is that ever since you went to that gym, I hear these stories all the time about how you're getting shit kicked, and then I think about how we trained together for 4 years, and
Yeah,
I think that you let me have one thing one time.
it's like
I
Jimmy.
just I'm like, and I think it was just because you got tired and you're like, I'm done. I want to go home. And I'm like, ha,
Yeah,
unlock.
uh,
And you're like,
yeah,
fuck you, white belt. But like, it's just that's mind blowing to me.
yeah,
That's a perfect analogy though, because it is why I'm attracted to Jimmy's coaching style
Yes.
is because Jimmy coaches the way that I parented my boys, which is there's no gifts here, right?
Mhm.
Anything that you
Yeah.
get, that's something that you earned, right?
Yes.
You claim that. I'm not going to send you into this world with a false sense of I beat my dad at this thing when you really didn't because I wanted to boost your self-esteem from in the
Yeah.
moment, right? Like
Totally.
I want lasting lessons. And so that's why it's funny, like we joke about it, there's going to be some pain with rolling with Jimmy, right? There's going to be some pain even in letting and being Jimmy Zuki and letting him demonstrate things on you, right? It's gonna
Oh,
hurt.
it's lovely.
And
It's
but
cleansing for the soul.
but as soon as you're done, you realize like nobody else in this room got anywhere near the level of pressure or pain that I felt, even just
Mhm.
seeing Jimmy demonstrate that, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now I go into every role knowing what the possibilities are, which I also think feeds into that sort of humility that we were talking about, right? Because I go in going, well, I know what's possible, right? So
Yeah.
this person, I know I'm tired today and they're probably not as tired as me,
Yeah.
or they're 20 years younger than me, or it doesn't matter that they smell like booze, they're still doing flips over me for some reason.
Yeah.
Like
Right, right.
whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Uh, but that coach that you were talking about, Jordan, that was one of those prime examples of like someone who you walk in the building and they walk up and they go, "Hey, I'm a black belt. I'm the head instructor." You're like, "Okay, dude, like, you don't have to pee
It's
on me. I'm gonna train here. It's fine."
right.
Like, and then you go all the way down the line, and then you realize like that person's not paying child support, and they have a couple of baby mamas, and they can't hold a
Right.
job, and
Exactly.
you're like, this guy is the one who I'm putting up on some pedestal because they're good
Well,
at
Yeah.
wrestling.
right. Like you
Like,
talked about like hero worship at the beginning of the episode, Jordan, and it's like that's
Yeah.
the prime example of how that can fail miserably.
Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah, but you also, so I think that self-awareness is the anti Dunning-Kruger, right? It's
Mhm.
the kryptonite. You have to have not only self-awareness of your own capabilities, but you have to be able to reasonably evaluate somebody else's and make a judgment call on how much stock you should place in their authority and what they're
Mhm.
saying, right? And I think this is why it's been related politically so much on the news, why I'm hearing it so much, is literally because the people who are in charge, they're not really doing anything. They're just everybody's going, I'm in charge. I'm in charge. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, in charge of what? Like, what does that mean? What does it
Right.
actually end up doing? What does it
Yeah.
accomplish? Um, it always comes back, right? I always ask the question, how do we right the ship or how do we start? And it's always tough with the self-awareness question because self-awareness really requires that you are the one who activates that, right?
Mhm.
Um, have you ever been inspired to self-awareness by some of those situations or by someone like that? Have you ever found yourself all of a sudden with this light bulb moment that goes off because of seeing that sort of exhibited one way or the other?
I think it's like less of like the light bulb goes on and stays on, and more of like you're having constant like power outages, and it like flicks on for a second and then turns back off again. Uh, and in the spirit of keeping this episode truly Bob Highsmith themed, I have a distinct
He's
memory
done
of
listening. He's not even listening to this
he's
episode.
already turned it off. Right, exactly. Um, well, Bob, since you're not listening anymore, um, it's funny because I'll have a time where like there's everybody has like a technique that's theirs in jujitsu. Like all of a sudden you fall into a game and you begin naturally building a set of expertise and a set of skills around a particular move or a technique. And then you gain a reputation for that technique. And I remember when I was starting being on the receiving end of everybody's best techniques, and it might have something to do with the fact that I don't know how to slow down in roles and I just go full bore and people are like, okay, if this is what we're playing, you're gonna get the you're gonna get the full volume. But um I have a distinct memory of somebody sitting there going like, oh yeah, I just don't want to get loop choked by you.
Mm,
And I think my loop chokes are garbage. I think they're terrible. And it's like a Hail Mary panic move when someone's trying to pass too aggressively, or if their head magically finds itself too low, or any of these other situations that I just particularly find fortunate. And I think it might have been you, Randy, where you were saying something like, the reason why you find it so often is because the way you move puts the other person's head below yours.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why you're noticing the opportunity. So I didn't even recognize all of the other things that I was doing before that moment where I felt really lucky that they did this to themselves. I had
mm,
no perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, maybe that's why I'm finding this to work for me. Like
mm,
I didn't have that broader perspective. So we were talking about like self-awareness, and it's like you can be so intentional and try so hard to reflect on yourself and reflect on your growth. But if you only stay in that lane and you don't allow others to provide observations or insights, others that you trust in your community or your circle of family or friends, that might also be self-limiting. So yeah, I mean, self-awareness is huge in
mm,
righting the ship, but I also think that you have to have that humility to let others provide input too.
mm,
The combo of that is interesting because so like on Tuesday night it was Nogi and it was just so one of the recurring thoughts that comes to me a lot is at this point in the game I should be not exhausted and not sore after every jujitsu practice, regardless of how old I am, whatever. That's like a recurring thought, whether it's real or not, or should be, whatever. It just is what I think. And so I went in and I'm rolling with this white belt and I'm letting him work and I'm tired and he's like getting ready to pass my guard and he doesn't know it, like he doesn't even know what's going on. And I went, man, I'm sick of this. And I just sat up and popped up and rolled him over and ended up on top, right? And I'm just sitting like it was nothing to do. And then on the drive home, where the most honest reflection happens, um, I was driving home and I was thinking, literally every round, I start in the worst position possible. Every
mm.
round of my jujitsu life, right? I never start on top. I never already start with grips. I never already start with anything. I'm on bottom on my back and I let you start where you want and then we go. No
Yep.
matter what belt you are, I do that, right? No wonder I'm exhausted and sore at the end of every single class.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like be real about it. But I think
Also,
that
yeah.
so the the side that knows that I'm capable of that couples with the side that is maintaining the humility, right? And I think to your point, Kris, in my case, how it manifests is as inaction. I tend to hold back and go, okay, I'm building up energy reserves for this next explosion, or I'm instead of just going steady, I'm going from explosion to explosion to explosion, right?
Mm,
Um, which is also exhausting and it's also a huge energy drain and it's also all of those things. But my mentality doesn't take into account that I'm starting in a horrible position every single
yeah.
time, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't factor that in. And I think that I think that's where the depth of the self-awareness is, right?
Mm,
Like it's not enough just to go, I'm tired today, right? That's not really anybody can just feel tired and go, I'm tired, right? That's not, I mean, there is a level of self awareness to that, but it's like real surface, right?
mm,
Um, but when you get to the bottom of it, when your gas tank is completely drained, when you're thinking, I'm going to tap just because I'm uncomfortable and I don't think I have enough energy to get out from the position I'm in right now, you know, and then you don't,
mm,
Mm.
right? And then you don't tap. You just hang in, and then you end up escaping, or you end up surviving, or you end up whatever, and then you and your partner both roll over and you're both dying and breathing and laughing and sweating, like
Uh-huh.
we both, and then your partner goes, "Oh my God, that was so close. Like you almost got this." And you're in your mind, you're going, "Dude, I just died for 5 minutes." Like that,
Yeah.
that wasn't my A
Yeah.
game. Um,
Yeah.
I think that is, again, hashtag Bob Highsmith. I think that's why everybody owes it to themselves to do something like jujitsu. It, it's not enough to take up like pickleball. You need to do something that's really going to help you find the total bottom of yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
So that you can even understand what the
Yep.
possible top of yourself might be.
Yeah. But then, okay, question then. Do you let people work then?
I
'Cause
always look for it.
see, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. So,
No, I can tell by the evil smile on your face.
yeah.
Like we
So,
know,
I
okay,
can't wait for June, Jordan.
we know
yes.
where this is going.
Really looking forward to it.
But like, okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot recently, actually. So letting people work gives them a false sense of security and a false sense of reality and a false sense of where they are, their growth trajectory, right? And so, like, I will measure people and I will see where you're at, and then I will apply the submissions from there. Like, I'm not just going to tap you seven. I remember,
Because that's
one time
boring.
Jimmy and I were talking in class. We're talking at like a Saturday class, and he's like, "Watch this," and he gets up and I think he tapped Matt Chandra like 7 times in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I
And like,
saw that, dude. I remember that.
yeah, and Matt gets up and staggers off the mat and like walks away. And I looked at him like, "You're an asshole, you know that." He's like, "Ah, you gotta remind him sometimes what the levels are." And I just like, and so
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Like, I rolled a 4-stripe blue belt today, one of our competition blue belts. They made that purple belt in May, and I just did whatever I wanted to do, right? And if letting somebody work just makes them be like, "Oh," and they even said, they're like, are you letting me work right now? Or what are you? I'm like, "I'm just measuring. I'm just seeing where you're at, what you're gonna do, and then I gotta build my submissions from there." But like, I think because I was never given up.
It's a
I didn't let Jordan
Lego
work
Tower
hard.
of Death.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I was never, Jimmy never let me work. Julio never let me work. Like, guys like that never this were like, "Oh, just do it. You
You
got
know,
me." It's just like that.
Yeah.
That never came for me.
Well,
It
okay,
was always a
so devil's advocate, right?
okay.
Because I think that letting someone work does 2 things. The first one is, if I let someone work and I let them get deep enough that they actually tag a submission, right?
Mhm.
Then I wait to see what their reaction to that is,
Yeah.
right? If all of a sudden their head swells up a little bit and their chest puffs out a little bit more, and then they start like, then I'm like, okay, the next 2
yeah.
minutes are going to be really the most miserable of your life, right?
Mhm.
Like, I hope that you enjoyed that, because that was totally just me doing you a favor and I learned my lesson, right? I'll never do it again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I do let people work, because sometimes when I explain something to somebody and I watch them do it on someone else, I can tell they don't get it, right?
Yeah.
And when
Very
they
fair.
do it on me, then I can go, okay, hear how I'm talking and breathing right now, and you're like you're grunting and sweating and trying to like do something, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, okay, well, I'm still explaining this to you calmly. That's because you're not doing, and then I can guide them into like, okay, yep, oh, did you hear my voice change there? Okay, yep, now you're in the right spot.
Yeah.
Now let's put
Mhm.
your other arm here, right? That's the only way that I find I can really understand what it is,
Mm.
where they're not applying it properly, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but in terms of like, if someone comes in and they're not in that place, they're like, "Okay, yeah. I mean, it's all bets are off, right?
It's on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna feast for the next 5 minutes." And so
I
I did come up under Jordan.
yeah.
There is that evil in there. It's just, it's a little more
I
tempered.
I'm just waiting for the light switch to flip on that, because most of the time people go, "Oh, wow, I did pretty good." And then I'm like, "Yeah, I was just letting you work."
There's also that, right? That's a real thing too.
Yeah.
But
But it's funny because, but though it's difficult though. Like, there is a thing too that, like, letting people work, like, it's hard to turn that on and off though sometimes too. Like,
I
because I remember I had a phase where I did let people work and I would get caught, but then you get to a certain point, you're like, "Oh, I can't let this person work anymore." and then you
I
and then you
yeah.
and then you smash them 5 or 6 times, and they go, "What happened? Like, what?
I
Why
had
is this
a
not happening anymore?" It's like,
I had
eh.
a distinct role just like that on Monday night where I went from like a white belt and I was just letting him work and I wanted to just get to the move of the day. And so I was kind of
Mm,
steering him towards that moment because we had just drilled it. Like we had just done 3/4 mount. So I'm like, the whole point is how do you maintain 3/4 mount? So I'm like letting him start to pass and like I'll feed my leg under and oh my gosh, he's got mount. And then I trap the leg and then let him figure out like, okay, can you hold me down? I'm like going on my side
mhm,
and starting to get the escape and going so slow. And he's just like, white knuckling everything. And I'm like, all right, this is boring. And pop out, get the sweep, go on top finish, and then reset and do the same thing. I start to let him pass, start to let him start to feed into 3/4 mount. And I'm like, okay, this was kind of nice. Like my heart rate's not too high. And then this young, like competition blue belt comes up and he's like, hey, okay, let's roll. And the last time I rolled with this kid, he was like a buck 40 and just super aggro. And I'm at the last time I rode with him, I had like a 90-pound weight advantage. And I'm not gonna, I mean, kid was like 15. I'm not gonna like go crazy. Of course I'm gonna let him work. Well, that was like a year ago. And I've
mhm.
lost a little weight. He's gained a little bit of weight. He's been training his ass off. And we start going, and this kid just full bore, like trying to rip my head off. And I'm still in the mode from the previous roll of like, we're letting him work. Motherfucker like starts setting up a darce 2 minutes into the roll, and
Perfect.
I'm already so compromised, and I'm like, I really don't want to fight out of this right now. And I look over, and there's like a purple belt that just signed up with the gym who was watching it, and I'm like, ah, fuck. Now I
Team the
really have to get out of this because this
Yeah.
guy's sitting here judging me, all because I was still in let him work mode. And so, like you're saying, like if you start to get caught, now I know the next time I roll with this blue belt, like it's gonna be fucking on.
Mhm.
And not because I'm trying to be mean, but because I don't have that kind of runway anymore. I'm
Yeah.
not good enough, and he's gotten a lot better. So it's interesting how you have to like pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, so I think that doesn't that part of it is also the self-awareness thing too, right? Like, I think that's where I think that's what how we put a ribbon on this conversation is, right? Just to sum up that you just have to be careful not to elevate your level of thinking beyond what's realistic.
Mhm.
Maintain that self-awareness, and it will help you to temper that and keep you in the right zone. Um, but I don't know. You know, it's always hard to know what you don't know. So if you're listening and you want to give us some insight into this, have you had any experience with people who seem to be on that Dunning-Kruger effect spectrum? Let
Mhm.
us know in the comments. We'd love to hear. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, the notifications, set it all so that you can know every time we release one of these episodes. We put them out every Friday. It's always all kinds of different topics and different guests, but today has been my regular guests, Jordan Lopez and Kris Anderson. Fun conversation, boys. And as always, we like to end every episode with a little bit of gratitude. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of our community and listening to the conversation. Thank you for your interaction, and I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next week on Sweeter After Difficulty.
Thanks.
See ya.